Hi, this is Michael Azarad, Editor-in-Chief of the Talkhouse, and welcome to the Talkhouse Music Podcast. The whole idea of the Talkhouse Music Podcast is to put together two musicians who are interested in each other's work. So when we heard that Radiohead's Philip Selway wanted to do a Talkhouse podcast with UK musician Obaro Ejimiwe, who performs as Ghostpoet, it made all the sense in the world. These two are definitely interested in each other's work, as you'll soon see. They get deep into their process in a really candid and insightful way, and they get to places that only two musicians would get. It's hard to categorize Ghostpoet's acclaimed music, but it involves vivid poetry and flowing grooves. His new album, his third, Shedding Skin, was recorded with live musicians, a new experience for him, and that's where he and Selway really connect. Although he's best known as the drummer in Radiohead, Philip Selway has released two very good solo albums, 2010's Familial and last year's Weatherhouse, so he can relate to Ghostpoet about moving to the front of the stage. They'd never met before, but they hit it off right away, just two musicians talking peer-to-peer. Selway has some great reminiscences about the dawning days of Radiohead, and Ejimiwe has some really great reminiscences about the dawning days of Ghostpoet. They discuss music theory versus intuition, collaboration, self-doubt, reading your own press, and much more. It's amazing how these two very different musicians relate. Those guys talk for an hour and a half, and it's all really great stuff, but we figured we'd split it up into two parts. Here's part one.
So what are you up to?
Well,
What's been happening?
been couple of things.
Yeah.
Been doing my stuff this year, so that's been just been doing shows, and so it's festivals in over in the States. Played at Coachella, did a Hostess music festival in Tokyo earlier on in the year.
Nice.
And then club shows as well.
And this is all your own stuff, or this is radio?
All my own stuff.
Nice,
yeah.
nice.
And then in between time, we've been working on Radiohead stuff again as well. So that's been, that's been going in fits and starts.
Yeah.
But come September, it just becomes quite a full schedule.
I hear you.
Then, but like yourself, because I mean you're out doing shows. You're in the middle of shows.
Yeah, I'm doing festivals at the moment. The summer festival thing, and I've done like a bit of Europe and a bit on my own UK tour.
Yeah.
And so festivals, which is always a bit weird for me because it's like with your own shows, you get kind of ahead of steam and you're just kind of like, okay, show after show after show, and you kind of get into the rhythm of it. With festivals, it's kind of like, okay, so you got a couple of this on Friday, Saturday, and then week off.
Yeah.
Get back on it again, and it's been a bit weird this year doing it, but I've enjoyed it. It's been interesting, really interesting to play live again because I didn't really do much last year with live stuff. I got a question.
Okay.
I've got a few questions that's going to pop up from time to time. How have you found being a solo artist? Because it's your second record, is that right? That you're in the campaign mode at the moment, partly.
Yeah.
How have you found that being like a solo artist away from the band stuff?
I've found it's felt rather more natural this time.
Okay.
It's, I suppose I first started thinking about it, probably about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when I was just working on demos.
Yeah.
And then, going through that process of trying to find a singing voice, of actually thinking, okay, I'm kind of, I suppose, the focus of what's going on here, the focal point for it. And and beyond that as well, is actually working with different people. With Radiohead, we got together at school, and we kind of played exclusively with each other for a good couple of decades. And so that process of then going on, collaborating with other people, with the record I did release last year, I was working with Ardem and Quinta as well. And, we've gone on and done, other projects as well within that. Yeah. And that has just been such a healthy process. I mean, it's brilliant getting to work with, those kind of other different musical voices and personalities. And just, it kind of shakes things up for yourself. It gets you out of old habits, I think.
That was interesting, intrigued to know, in the sense of how did you find the process compared to working in the band? Did you find it quite difficult in the beginning to come up with ideas, or was it because what was the mind state in the sense of becoming a solo artist, so to speak?
I suppose initially I was working on my own with a producer called Ian Davenport.
Okay.
But kind of musically, I was generating what was going on there in terms of the arrangements. And, bits of that were coming out and thought, that sounds, that sounds like me, and it sounds starting to sound convincing. And then what was a real eye-opener for me was going to do a project with Neil Finn, which is called Seven Worlds Collide.
Okay.
And I'd gone along to that gone on board of that as a drummer.
Right.
But I got to do some of my songs as well whilst I was there recording them.
Okay.
And just actually seeing how that worked in the context of, working with Lisa Germano, bassist Sebastian Steinberg, and Glenn and Pat from Wilco as well, and just suddenly seeing how everything got fleshed out in that way. And that whole thing of actually, thinking, okay, they're all brilliant musicians, got their own very distinct musical voices, and kind of going with that, really.
Yeah.
Just thinking, okay, that's a good blend. That felt like a really good blend. And I suppose that's what I've looked for when I'm doing my solo stuff, is that kind of good combination of voices.
Right.
And like yourself, I mean, like on Shedding Skin, there are quite a few collaborations going on, or guest spots going
guest
on.
vocalists on there. I kind of I like the juxtaposition of my voice with voices, mainly like female voices, because it's just mine's rough and rubbish, and then you've got nice, elegant female voices or ghostly kind of voices. I'm drawn to that. So with this record, I just kind of wrote. I write all the songs in terms of the lyrics, and I co-produced it with my touring bass player, a guy called John Calvert. And for me, I wanted to. My initial plan was to have one voice, like the kind of the conscious of the record, and it's with all ideas, when they're just on a piece of paper in your head, they sound fantastical, and it's like anything's possible, and then in practice it just wasn't going to work. So I started to think about, okay, what voices work with the lyrics that I'm trying to portray in any particular song, and it was a combination of people that I knew and people that I just admired their music, and just went about it from that, really. And that's always the process of me with guest vocalists or guest musicians. It's either people that I know or this music that I love, that I want to be part of. So yeah, it was great fun. I don't know of it here where we are now in Hackney Studios in East London, and it was it was great. It was great fun.
Oh, some brilliant ones. I mean, like
thank you,
Nadine Shah and Melanie Di Biasio as well.
Yeah. They're both amazing people. Like Nadine, I've known a bit for a couple of years. I think she supported me once on a gig, and I've just really been interested in what she's been doing for a long time. Yeah. So at the first opportunity I had to do something with her, I just had to try and see if she'd be interested. And she's amazing. I don't know if you've ever met her before. Nadine.
I haven't, no.
She's amazing. She's just the funniest individual, and she just has this dark exterior. Everything's black and the music's bleak and dark, and you think, God, what kind of person is she going to be? But she's like laugh a minute.
Right.
She's amazing. And Melanie's very similar to her persona. She's very just kind of like subdued and
I've met Melanie.
Oh, you've met her?
Yeah.
And she's just very kind of just like, yes,
You meet her and think, she's the real deal, isn't she?
She really is. She's lovely woman. And she came
absolutely.
over from France to record her vocals, and she's just amazing. Really, really, really talented individual. I love her music as well. From
last year, I saw kind of my albums of last year was No Deal.
Yeah, really good. Did you hear the remix record at all?
I've heard bits. I haven't heard it in its entirety.
Okay. And that's supposed to be doing really well for her as well, which is great, So yeah, I'm really pleased that I got to work with great people, and it's just something, I don't know, I think it's something I just enjoy doing. I did it from record to record, and I don't know. I may do it if I do another record. I may do it again, or just try something completely different, whatever. You know? Yeah.
There's quite a bit of coordination that goes into that, though.
Yeah, I guess so. With all like guest vocals for me, I just write the song, and then I have an idea in my head of the kind of vocal that I want for it, and then I don't think about doing it in the beginning. I do it at the end when it's like,
Right.
it may work, it may not work, and then I don't even know in a lot of cases until they come to the studio and record, because I'm just like, I know in my heart it's going to work, and then they start recording like, thank God it does work, it's okay, it's all right. So yeah, it's kind of touch and go if it, in the end, but I enjoy that.
It's that combination of just those hours before building up to the session, thinking the sweats and excitement. And
completely. Every time I do it to myself. I should just do it. I should just be a bit more practical about this, but I like that. The feeling of it, Yeah. So it's cool. I don't know. I admire. It's really interesting talking to you because like Radiohead and the way you guys make your music and the idea of like, especially like for me, if I'm honest, I kind of started to really get into you guys from like Kid A and onwards really, and it was just the idea that you can make whatever you want. There's no rules to it all. You can just do whatever. And I try to do that with my music as much as possible, and then it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, but that's I guess the beauty of being creative and being able to make music. It's just
and the great thing is you don't have to play people for bits that don't work.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got a whole archive of those.
But I'm intrigued in terms of with the creative process for you guys. Is do you go away and do bits yourself, or does it depend on record to record, or have you got like a formula? So just not a formula, but a set, like a natural kind of way of making your stuff, or just whatever happens.
It's interesting because there's a natural thing that falls into place if we're all sat behind our instruments in a room together,
right? And
at points it sounds like a sixth form band,
right.
And you listen to that and think, oh my god. But then every so often something will happen, something will gel there, and you think, that's a good moment. There's something to work on with that. And then, working with Nigel, working in the studio, you've got the whole scope of that. And that takes it to a different place. There'd be, like on King of Limbs. I mean, we had the kind of the methodology there for it, which was putting together lots of these little snippets of music on the fly and building up songs from that. So, we will approach, I think we kind of change from record to record, try and change the underlying approach to making music.
And is that purposeful, or is that kind of like it is?
I think it's something to do with short attention spans.
Right.
But I mean, at the core of that, though, there is that sense of a band, though, as well, which comes when we play together. So I think that's become quite a cohesive voice.
Yeah.
I mean, we learnt to play our instruments in the context of each other. So, that kind of shapes it in a particular way.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting then what you take from that.
Yeah.
What you put together in the studio, and then how you kind of recreate that to go and play live.
Yeah.
And again, the next stage down, that's changed how you play.
Yeah.
In kind of real time.
Yeah.
And so, it's that kind of ongoing cycle there with it.
Just what at that point you mentioned about when you've made a record and then having to work out how to play it again live. Is that something you think about when in the recording process? Because for me, with the last record, the record I've just brought out, it's very much a case of I had that in my mind, like how is it going to sound live? Because I want it to sound. I want it to be an easy process from studio to stage. And I don't know, is that something you guys think about, or depends on the record? Or
I think we get very much caught up in what we're doing in the studio at the time. So the live thing is definitely something that comes after for us.
Right.
That's the next part. And it's always, that's always exciting. It's always a lot of head scratching that goes on there. You know, I mean, like with the last record, King of Limbs, because you know that was quite layered rhymthmically, and so thinking how we're going to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, Clive Deemer came on board for that one, and so we did the double drummer thing when we were playing live, and that kind of thing. Then that, you know, that brought a whole new dimension to the playing and how we sounded as a band, and you know, just I suppose. Again, coming back to that thing saying earlier on, that we for so long we kind of played exclusively with each other, and that takes you so far.
Yeah.
And you know, so I suppose, you know, from album to album, you try and push yourself beyond your comfort zone with it, with thinking that actually you could go around in circles.
Yeah.
Quite easily on that, but then introducing, you know, these new voices into it, like Clive, or you know, when we were doing stuff off Kid A, you know, and for a few things we had, you know, his amazing horn sections with us, and all those things. They just, you know, they keep it. As I say, it takes you beyond where you would naturally sit comfortably,
and that's a good place to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I always feel when I'm going into anything new, that I do not want to know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Which, you know, depending on how on where you're on kind of the self-esteem XY axis.
Yeah. It's a mental strain, you know. It can be for me. It is. Yeah.
But it's a good place to be.
Yeah.
And I feel if you're not in that place, then actually probably you're not going to do your best work unless you're there, really.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. Yeah, it's really interesting because it's like I definitely with this record because I decided I wanted to make it with a band.
Yeah.
A band in inverted commas situation. I put myself in a position where I was working with people who knew way more music theory and technical stuff than I did. You know, up to that point, it was very much about, I feel these notes are right. I don't know what the notes are, but they just feel like the right thing to put down in this thing. And this sound and this kind of like whatever kind of like thing I've recorded on my phone, I just want to plunk it in there. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But then I was working with people who knew the rules, and it was really hard to mentally get them down onto my level. Do you know what I mean? And that was a tricky thing for me. But it was good, like you say. The end result I'm really pleased with, because it took me to a place that I wasn't expecting to go, you know. And I guess it's a good thing to be.
Well, it's interesting.
Right?
I mean, you're saying that's the approach, because it does. You listen to the record and it feels very intuitive,
right
there. So
yeah,
that's, but that's, you know, and that's kind of what you know, good music is for me. It has to work on that level, because you know, people, you don't go away humming, you know, various bits of music theory, do you?
Yeah, this is true. A lot of my friends are going to kill me for agreeing, but yes, music theory friends, I still love you.
Absolutely, and that stuff is, I mean, all of that stuff, it's kind of, you know, we all do it naturally, whether we're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
And it's a really useful tool, but it's not always. Well, you know, you chose to work with people who've got those skills, so it's that kind of collaboration thing, which, you know, and it's all those different kinds of. I think it's really exciting where people, they attain that kind of level of musicality, but it's coming from a different place.
Yeah.
And that's always exciting.
Yeah.
You know, you always bring different skills to the table, don't you?
Yeah. And I think that's important too. I think if you're hell-bent on doing your own thing all the time, which is important as well. I think it doesn't leave you open to ideas, you know, which I think for me is really important to like get not opinions, but there's a different perspective on things, and okay, you want to do something like this, maybe if you try it like this, it could work. And it's like, oh, okay, that's the light bulb moment I was looking for in that particular track or whatever. So yeah, I find that quite interesting working with people.
Quite intimidating though as well, working with people who've got all their theory chops
it was
together.
Difficult. It's just like I'm giving them the demos, right? This is the kind of thing I want to do. This is the sounds. It's like, okay, cool, right. So they're just flying across each other across the room, like, okay, it's C and like these notes and that notes. I'm just like, what? This is a foreign language to me. I'm just hearing this foreign language flying across the room, and I'm just like, how can I, because I'm a dictator when it comes to my own stuff, and I'm like, I need to keep my stamp on this. It has to be me, or what's the point, So it's very, I found it really, really. It took a long time to get my head around it.
So did you feel by the time you got to the end of the record that actually that was felt very identifiably you by the end?
Yes, yeah, and that's partly because I write it all lyrically, and before I went into the band situation, the demos were at a level where I was like, it's got a soul, it's got my own feelings in it, So I'm happy to work with a band to shape it, but not to create from scratch, because it would have been really difficult in that situation. But by the end, I was really happy with it. I think I was able to go to a place that I wouldn't have been able to go by myself, and that's what I wanted to do on this record, in the sense of this hopefully reach a slightly bigger audience and have music that was a bit more immediate. But the way my head works is, now that I've done this, I just want to do something completely different now, and this whatever, and so I've been listening to a lot of Talk, like their last couple of records. What is it? Laughing Stock, and what was the one before that? It was I can't remember. But the last two records are theirs, and I've just been blown away by the process. I've been reading about the process and their mindset when they were doing really well, and they decided, similar to like what you guys were thinking, in the sense of after when Kid A was produced, I guess, and this kind of this not feeling that you have to stick on a particular path, and it's the only way I feel I could be comfortable making music, or I'll still have the hunger to make it if I can just keep bouncing around, still obviously having identity and having something, I don't know what the word is, but kind of still very much being me, but not feeling that I have to do one particular thing all the time, I don't know. That's kind of how I think with making
it's having all these kind of different aspects to your kind of musical personality, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I listen to so much. There's so many things that I listen to. I can't focus on this one thing all the time,
But it's like, writing lyrics or something like that. You wouldn't choose to write about one particular subject
over and over again. Oh my God.
Well, some people do.
Some people do. But I personally, I find it too boring. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't feel the need. I wouldn't feel there would be no need to do music if it was like destined. I had to write the same kind of stuff over and but partly because of also what my fans expect on my label or whatever. I couldn't do it. I don't. It's just me, really. Yeah. I'm just I'm a bit odd in the way I decide to do things, because I just try to go against the tide all the time. I just try and just do my own thing, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's the beauty's in the unknown of it all. Do you know what I mean? The mystery of what, if I go down that road, what can come about from it. So that's kind of me when it comes to that. Question for you.
Yeah.
What for you? What? Where's the hunger still come from for you? What, as a drummer, what gets you up and wanting to get in the studio and pick up them sticks again? And what stopped you from just thinking, forget, I'm done? Why keep going?
I think in the context of Radiohead, it's hearing the new material come through, and just thinking that's good, and wanting to be a part of that, and also, I suppose I'm very aware of my limitations as a drummer.
Right.
I think in one way that's been a good thing for me, because I think it's made me, I suppose, develop a very well. If you're into Radiohead, I think you recognise how I drum. And so it's quite identifiable in that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's an insecurity that goes along with that, thinking, oh, gosh, who am I trying to kid? I'm a big fraud here. And so you're always kind of wanting to get beyond that. You think that there's something, actually, once I get to that point, I will have attained that, and I will feel good within my own skin about this. And of course, you have moments of that.
Yeah.
But it's always just slightly out of reach.
Just out of reach. It just keeps you going just long after this, almost grasp it, but not quite. Right, okay, I hear that.
And then you hear, what other stuff other people are doing rhythmically as well.
Yeah. And
then, that's very exciting. I was watching a clip on The Guardian of you.
Oh yeah, okay, cool.
There's a recent clip with the band.
Oh yeah. That would have been like the Off Peak Dreams thing. I did. That was like one of the singles they did. Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah.
And just like watching your drummer on that. I thought,
cool.
That's good.
That's
right.
on it. He'll love to hear that. John Blees, he's a great drummer.
He really is.
He's doing a lot of interesting stuff now, away from me. Other people are starting to nick him now because he's very good.
That's the way it goes.
It's the way it goes, isn't it?
And also, doing my own stuff has been introduced me to working with other drummers.
Yeah.
On my first record, worked with Glenn Cochie.
Okay.
Absolutely amazing drummer.
Right.
He's classically trained,
right?
But he's got incredible musical imagination.
Is that for you what makes, apart from the classically trained, because that's like a genre thing, I guess, but not genre thing, but educational sense. But what makes a good drummer for you? Like
imagination and feel. God, I'm sounding like a 70s disco track, aren't I?
That's the question. I apologise.
It's just you know it, don't you? Somebody will. I mean, if you listen to Mitch Mitchell, you don't need to analyse it. It just grabs you, doesn't it?
Right.
He's got all the chops, but it was just delivered with real style and just this real energy behind it all as well.
Right.
And I think, where you come across it, where you find the musicians who've kind of had that level of training, they've got all the chops, but they've also got that extra something.
Right.
They've gone beyond that and they're back into the intuitive again.
Right, I hear you. Okay.
But also, there's an intellectual strand to what they're doing as well. But it doesn't stifle the intuition in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's kind of all the greats have had that, haven't they? They've learnt the rule book, and then they've
just tore it up.
But that rule book has informed what they've done, even if it is a case of just saying, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
It's a reaction to that. But, you get this level of technique and skill and musical insight that goes with that, I think.
Do you think it's difficult to break the rules if you know the rules? Does it depend on what does it depend on? Is it boils down to your peers around you or what you listen to? I'm always intrigued by that. I know a few people who are like that, who have the classical training, but they just completely go against it. Like I know a girl called Mikachu. I don't know if you ever heard of her.
No, I haven't.
She brought out a couple of records on. First record was on Accidental, which was what's his bloody name? I'm rubbish with names, so this is good. Matthew Herbert. Matthew Herbert's label. And then she signed to Rough Trade and done another one on that. And she did the soundtrack for that Alien film that was set in Scotland with Scarlett Johansson in it.
Oh, okay.
What was it called? Oh, God, that film. Yeah, she done the soundtrack for that. Yeah. And she's classically trained. I think she went to Goldsmiths. But she's just completely... The idea for her is just to... There is no rules, and for someone who doesn't know that about her, that she's classically trained, you'd think she's just some experimental mad woman, but she's taken rules and broken that. But she's one example, but I know so many other people who can't get out of that. I don't know what is it. What makes you? What drags you away from the rule book?
Yeah.
I always find that interesting.
I suppose in kind of whatever walk of life you're in,
Yeah.
there will always be people who, have got that kind of self-awareness to think, that doesn't work for me. And I suppose, you apply that musically and you get,
I guess it's a natural thing, I guess.
It's kind of there is that's kind of like a dual personality, isn't it? To actually follow that kind of, get that kind of level of musical attainment going down the classical route requires an awful lot of dedication and a lot of faith in that system that will get you to that point as a musician. Yeah. But at the same time, you have this other kind of voice going on saying, no, that's not you.
Yeah, it's not you. Yeah, yeah. I always find it fascinating. I think it's so important just to do what you feel. I just think it's so important to do that, especially for me because I don't really know theory, and it's something I do want to learn more of. I'm always afraid that it's I'll start to become a slave to what I'm supposed to do, and like the right chords, and a lot of my stuff, the earlier stuff is very much kind of odd chords and just wrong signatures and all that. But for me, it just feels right. So I just.
So where did you start musically then? Did you?
Where did I start? I started, I guess, probably university. I started. Went to uni 18. And somebody introduced me to Reason, Propeller Reason. It's like a door, and I just bought like an old iMac, and I just started learning that really. And because I can't play anything enough to confidently record, electronic music was the easiest way for me to get involved really. So this is something I don't really talk about either because it gets annoying when I get asked this in interviews. It's not an interview, it's a chat. Yeah. But I kind of started like in the grime world because it was easily accessible. I knew people around who were producers, who were MCs, and it was music that was solely based electronically. You needed a MIDI keyboard, and then you could just run away with it. So I started there, and then I kind of done that for a couple of years. Again, this is like hobby, nothing serious at all, and I did that for a couple of years, and then I kind of just decided that I wanted to make my own stuff. I wanted to do my own bits because I was kind of part of a collective of producers and MCs. But I just thought I wanted to make my own music, but I didn't want it to be grime. I didn't want it to be genre specific. I just wanted to make something that felt something, made me feel something. Yeah. So I just started this experimenting, and again, still just within the confines of reason. I just started just making these other kind of demos where it was involving this ambient sounds and like found sounds and writing lyrics where I was talking about things I could see around me and real things that were going on in my life and stuff that conversations I'd overheard or news stories or whatever. The stuff that I knew was real, not fake. And I just started to develop that really. And I used to put stuff up on MySpace back in the day. And I one day that's how I knew people like Mikachu and various characters who were making music now, like professionally. I didn't realize it was networking back then. It was just finding people that I just were like-minded people to me. And through doing that, a friend I made through MySpace knew somebody who worked at Brownswood, which is Giles Peterson's label. And they got in contact, they were interested in me sending some demos. So I sent some demos of stuff. I didn't really know what that meant back then. It was just kind of, okay, stuff that's kind of finished, right? So I thought, right, here you go. Here's a few things. Have a listen. Not thinking anything of it. At this point, I was probably much later than beginning of uni. So I was about 26, maybe. 26, 27, maybe. And I was working, I finished university. I stayed in Coventry where I went for uni. stayed up there, was working 9 to 5, customer service stuff, just doing the music in the evenings as a hobby. But like, I bought a few more bits.
Yeah.
It was a serious hobby, but it wasn't a career. And then from the demos being sent down, they said, "Oh, we like what you hear. We really like what we heard. Why don't you come down and meet Giles? Giles wants to meet you in London." I was like, "All right, fine. I've got nothing to lose. Why not?" So I went down there. I had a chat with Giles, and this was I didn't realise that Brownswood is actually what it used to be on Brownswood Road up in, is it North East London, somewhere around there?
Right.
And it's literally a kitchen and a living room, and it's kitchen living room, and he's got like it's a house or a downstairs flat, and he's got a basement full of records, just massive amount of records in the bathroom, toilet, living room, everywhere. So met him, and he was just like, "Yeah, I really like what you're doing. You know, what do you want to do with this stuff?" I was like, "Well, you know, it's at this point, I never thought of doing a career in music at all. I was brought up in the business environment. My parents were they owned an estate agents from when I was a kid, so I never really looked at it as a sustainable career.
Right.
So I just I went down there open-minded, think, all right, let's see what happens. And he, by the end of the conversation, he was like, "Let's put a record out. Let's just do it." And I was like, "Okay, put a record out. That means I have to actually work at this." So yeah. So then from that, I just went back up to Cov and worked on the first record, really. I know it was literally old iMac. I had like a M Audio MIDI controller, and I think I had like a little old KP2 Korg effects processor thing. I think that was it, really. And other than that, I just recorded bits on my phone and stuff like that, really.
Yeah.
And I just did it at home, and it kind of went on from that. It got like nominated for Mercury Prize and stuff like that. And yeah, I just kind of it was really weird for me because like I said, it was a hobby, and it took a long time for me to take it seriously as a career because I've been so brought up with the idea that get involved with things that you know you're going to get a paycheck at the end of the month, you know, and you know where you're going to. There's a bit more control of what's going to happen in your career. So music.
Do you have a qualification of this? No.
No. And it was music wasn't encouraged by my parents. There's no one musical in my family. So for me, it was just like going into the unknown. So I didn't quit like my job at the time for at least a year. I was like working part time while the campaign was going because I couldn't bear having to rely on music, you know, as a career. But I'm glad I did it, and I've just tried to just build up something from then.
Good
you know?
choice.
Oh, thank you very much. I kind of just thought, yeah, why not? Give it a go. You got to try, you know. So I gave it a go, and here we are. What about yourself? Where did it? I'm sure you've been asked many times, but I don't know, so I'm intrigued to know.
Yeah, well,
where it started for you.
It was at school, really.
Yeah. And why drums?
That's the one that really appealed to me from quite an early age, actually. And I suppose got into music in that whole kind of post-punk thing,
right,
as well. And you know, from a drumming point of view, you know, I had that kind of very visceral. Emphasis wasn't on technique; it was on feel and energy. And that kind of appealed to me, really. And so it was, you know, various school bands, and then we started Radiohead at school, and that kind of, you know, we were going for quite a while. You know, we, like you, all went off to uni and came back from that, and you know, I had a job as well, and so, you know, at the back of my mind, I was thinking, and it's something we'd all spoken about amongst the five of us. That we want to make a go of this at some point.
Right.
But you go along. It is a very time-consuming hobby. For a very long time.
Yeah, it can be.
And then you get to the point where suddenly somebody's offering you a contract and saying, "You can do this for money."
Yeah.
and you can make a living out of this.
How did that make you feel when you got to that point where I could do this as a career now? Was it a mixed emotions, or were you like, yep, right, we're ready for this, or how did you feel personally about that?
Initially, I think we signed, it was with Parlophone, EMI. It was just before Christmas in 1991.
Yeah.
And we all went down to Manchester Square, because that's where they were at the time. It's a place, have all the kind of old Beatles balconies and everything. You're really aware of the history of the label and of the place at that time. And so to sign, you go right up to the top of the building, and you're there and you do all your signing. Yeah. And I remember we left after that, and you'd have thought actually kind of that would be all your adolescent dreams come true.
Yeah, yeah.
But we were all remarkably sober about it. I just remember us walking out, so it's like, oh, right, we kind of need to get on with it now, don't we?
That's the thing, it's true. You're kind of like, yeah, this is it. This is what you've been reading about, and this is the dream. And you're like, oh, actually, I've got to do some work now. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
And and then you go to, I remember we went the first time that we started playing in the States, which was 1993.
Right.
It had one of our early songs, first song, Creep, that actually did anything for us anywhere. Yeah. And so we kind of went over to the States on the back of that.
Right.
And so we were already there was a level of, I suppose, recognition there, admittedly just for the one song at the time. But there was an expectation of, I think, where you were supposed to be as a band. Right. And, I don't think our playing was quite there at the time. And you go over to the States and you come across all these other bands. It's a real eye-opener because, they can play.
Yeah.
At the time, I just remember thinking, oh, my God, they've got all the chops. And that was quite intimidating at the time. And, I suppose going through music has been kind of characterised for me by, as I was saying earlier, I'm feeling quite fraudulent at points. That's probably one of the most fraudulent feeling periods. Was that initial one? Yeah. But then again, it's just that sense that actually you've really got to kind of push what you're doing, and just really get your musical shit together.
Yeah.
And which is a healthy thing. It's so as I said, we learnt to play in a band, play in our instruments in the context of each other, really. Which was, I think you get something out of that if you can go the distance on that, which is quite idiosyncratic, and there's I suppose there's kind of a musical understanding that develops through that as well. So it is. I mean, we're coming up to the end of this year, 30 years since we started.
Really?
Yes.
Bloody hell! Wow. That's an amazing achievement.
And I remember looking back, I remember when the Stones did their 25-year anniversary tour, whatever. And you think, oh my God, that's how can you play in a band for that long? We're coming up against 30. There you go.
No, well done for that. How many records have you released now?
This is the sad part of it. In 30 years of being together as a band, we've released 8 studio albums.
That's all right. That's not bad. Some people have only released like 2-3 in like 20 years.
Yeah.
I was reading about D'Angelo. He's like got 2 records out, and it's in a case of 20 years maybe.
Right.
So 8's not bad. Doing all right.
You're very kind.
That's good. I think I just want to. I'm on 3 now, and I just want to keep. I want to keep going. I just feel don't know. For me, as much as I like doing it, I want to diversify a bit and do other bits. I was mentioning before, like wanted to get involved in radio and potentially down the road, and I really want to get involved in art now. I think as well. I just come back from Art Basel, which is like an art fair in Switzerland, like supposedly the biggest art fair in the world, and I was really intrigued. This like the kind of not and what I'm going to say, it's not about a money thing at all, but I was really astounded by the scale of what you can achieve in terms of what you could put up on a wall or a sculpture. And it for me, what blew my mind is, and this is not the reason why I want to go into art, but I couldn't believe the kind of monetary value that they put on a piece of art compared to a piece of music. My missus is an art director, and she kind of got it more than me. And I just was like, I couldn't understand how a sculpture could be worth $1 million, but a track could be worth 99p, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't understand how did they get to that point, you know? I don't know are you interested in art or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just intriguing to me.
But then again, you can buy a postcard of that sculpture for 99p, though, can't you? So
This is true. It's all swings around about some relative and all that stuff. But I found it really interesting. I was like, it was really intriguing to see like the stories behind pieces of art. I saw there was some musical bits. I actually went to do a gig over there for this guy called I should remember his bloody name. God, Mr. Simmons, I'll say, because I can't remember his first name at the moment. And he created basically a stack of speakers inspired by Lee Scratch Perry's Black Ark Studios, where it was literally he made speakers out of anything he could find, corrugated iron and thrown away wood and so on and so forth. And he's created that, and what he's doing with it is allowing it to tour around the world and get bands and acts to play through them, basically. So I did that there, and that was interesting. And there was other musical bits. I saw there was this artist had made a band out of thrown discarded guns, like handguns and machine guns, and he constructed like cymbal stands and they were all playing themselves basically through speakers, and it was really, really mind-blowing, some of that stuff. Really interesting. And I don't know, it's kind of something, it's another thing that I feel that I want to just try, because I like the idea of just trying things that on the surface is just a ridiculous idea, but I feel it's just being creative, isn't it? You know,
absolutely, and
that's
it's
what
kind
it
of
is,
a motivation and a kind of dedication that needs to go in behind all of that.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You know, I mean, to get to the whole thing with that whole kind of setup that works with speakers and things like that. Endless experiments to get you there.
Yeah.
And then the kind of conceptualizing it all as well, and fine tuning that. Yeah. And the energy behind that. I mean, that always comes across, doesn't it? You can always get the sense of, even if a piece is a piece of music, a piece of art, feels quite minimalist. You can get a sense of the actual input behind that.
Yeah, completely.
And you know, I think that's what kind of, for me, brings art, music to life. Is that level of dedication behind it.
Obviously, you made me see. Can't take this life for nothing. Let me be all alone. I left my throne. If I don't try another way, then I'll never know. So I don't care anymore.
But you say no way.
I don't care anymore.
Oh, you didn't need me.
There's a drawer in a room in a house that's calling your name.
Many thanks to Shuda Shinoda at Hackney Road Studios in East London for recording this conversation. And thanks to our producer-engineer Elia Einhorn for editing it. If you'd like to hear some more Talkhouse Music podcasts and read smart, notable musicians writing about new music, please visit thetalkhouse.com/music.